Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Earth Day 2021 virtual event, Climate Change and the art of communicating climate change. I'll be your host this evening. I am Mike Nelson. I am the chief meteorologist at Denver 7 here in Denver, Colorado. And we have just a wonderful panel of guests tonight to give you a variety of presentations from different uh, areas of the arts. We all learn differently in the way that we see the world and the way that we understand the world. And so, whether it be through theater, filmmaking, writing, comedy, song, painting, these are ways that we can communicate climate change information to the public. It is the number one existential threat that we face in the world today. And it is something that we must make the changes to allow our heirs to have their chance at a successful and happy life. So it is my pleasure to be with you tonight. We have some wonderful partners that were involved in all of this, and excuse my reading glasses, but I want to make sure we get everybody properly acknowledged. Our partners, my channel 7, the Denver channel, the University of Colorado Center for Humanities and the Arts, the Denver Museum of Nature and Science, and the Institute for Science and Policy. This event is being recorded, so you can share it with your friends and family, and we encourage you to share your thoughts and questions in the chat. In the latter half of the program, we'll take some of your questions, and apologies in advance. We won't be able to get to all of them, but I'll give you my email address, and you can certainly write to me if you don't get the answer that you're looking for. We have some wonderful speakers tonight: James Baylog, Jane Kim, Kenya Mahogany Fashaw, and Beth Osnos. And without further delay, let's get the evening rolling because we want to get to these wonderful speakers. Excuse my little cough there. I'm going to share my screen and just run through a little bit of what I do as a television meteorologist in presenting climate change. So the title of my presentation is Communicating Climate Change, Earth Day 2021. I am the chief meteorologist at Denver 7 here in Denver. I am a fellow of the American Meteorological Society, one of only about 30 broadcast meteorologists that have been elevated to that level in our professional society. Only 1% of the AMS membership is awarded the title of fellow. You can reach me at mike.nelson at thedenverchannel.com. You also see my Facebook and Twitter addresses here. So let me get this going here. So, ladies and gentlemen, the fact of the matter is we're running out of time. We've had 40 years of climate change denial. And while the hill is steep, it's not getting any less steep for us to solve this problem. And we really need to start worrying about what kind of world we are going to leave behind for Keith Richards. This is a humorous slide from our public event we did on Earth Day 2 years ago before COVID. And we think besides probably cockroaches and maybe Keith Richards, maybe nobody else will be left. So I want to talk to you about what I call the 7 deadly sins of climate change denial. And after years of talking about climate change on TV and to Rotary clubs and service organizations and schools, these are kind of the 7 things that I hear about. And I want to push back on each one of them. Don't politicize my weather report. I can watch somebody else who doesn't bring up this climate change. Mike, you can't even forecast next week, let alone for the next century. Carbon dioxide is just trace gas. What can that do? They said it was cooling back in the 1970s. It's snowing in, fill in the blank, Las Vegas, Jerusalem, whatever, so it can't be getting hotter. It's too expensive to do anything about it, and you can't trust the media and the scientists. Well, I have met Al Gore, but that's not the reason I talk about climate change. And I've written a book in conjunction with Dr. Peter Tons from NOAA in Boulder and with Michael Banks, a local recreational reporter, called The World's Littlest Book on Climate, 10 Facts in 10 Minutes About CO2. It's available from Amazon.com. And the goal is that in a 10 or 15-minute read, you can really understand the basics. I also talk about it on television. And part of the reason I do are those 3 little goobers right there. Those are our grandchildren, Liam, Owen, and Josephine. And of course, climate change is going to affect them much, much more than it will us in their lifetimes. And this is not new science. When people say, oh, well, this all started with Al Gore. No. We've known this from 1825 when Joseph Fourier realized that the Earth is too far away from the sun. It must be being warmed by the atmosphere. When Abraham Lincoln was president of the United States, John Tyndall did the chemistry experiments that carbon dioxide absorbed long wave or Earth energy. And in 1895, Svante Arrhenius predicted a doubling of global CO2 would warm the Earth by several degrees. And ladies, in 1856, Eunice Foote, an American scientist, at the time when women were not necessarily regarded to be scientists, did outstanding work on carbon dioxide, placing different gases in glass jars and realizing the carbon dioxide warmed up the most. So as television weathercasters, our art, if you will, is that we present complex things in a short amount of time to the average American every single day in 2.5 or 3 minutes. And we are as close to a scientist as most Americans will ever get. And they invite us into their living rooms. So when people because climate is what you expect and weather is what you get. Weather is chaotic, it changes rapidly. You'd expect Miami to be warmer than Denver in February. That's the climate. But the local weather on a given day could make it 70 in Denver in January or February, and just in the 50s in Florida. You picked a bad week to go to Florida. So it is actually easier to predict climate because it's basic thermodynamics. If you add heat, it gets warmer. It's why day is warmer than night and summer is warmer than winter. An analogy I like to use is that weather is one play in a football game and climate is the entire history of the National Football League. If it's snowing in Las Vegas, well, it's wintertime, and we expect more unusual local weather events as the climate system gets more energy. Global warming creates a steroid effect, hence McGuire and Sosa in the lower picture, and this steroid effect will make each molecule of CO2 is like a feather in a down comforter, and it's helping to trap heat in the atmosphere. Or you can say that the same amount of carbon monoxide in our air, 410 to 400 parts per million, would render us unconscious and close to death. Carbon monoxide is poisonous, carbon dioxide is not, but carbon dioxide is very effective at trapping heat. And the key thing to take away is that small amounts matter. Back in the 70s, they said we were headed for a new ice age. It's the cooling climates of hunger that were written back then. But even at that time, when I was at the University of Wisconsin getting my undergrad degree in meteorology, there were many more papers being published warning of warming as opposed to cooling. Can't trust the scientists? Well, if you've gone up to NOAA or to NCAR in Boulder and looked in the parking lot, if these scientists are making bank on fooling everybody about this crisis, they're not investing their money very well, because there are a lot of 10-year-old Camrys in the parking lot, one of which had the great bumper sticker of Mother Earth bats last, and she's warming up. Now, fossil fuel has been a miracle. Concentrated energy from the sun stored underground for millions of years. Its great energy density for gasoline, jet fuel, power plants is what makes it so useful. Life without fossil fuel is cold, dark, and short, and nobody wants to live in a hut with a candle. But the fact of the matter is, lighting fossil carbon on fire is causing the planet to get warmer. And from buggy whips to battleships, change happens and old ways disappear. And so it will be for the age of oil. The Sheikh Yamani, who just passed away in March, was quoted as saying, "The Stone Age didn't end for lack of stone, and the oil age will end long before the world runs out of oil." The solution is to electrify everything, but it's going to take a lot of electricity. The power for one house is about what a leaf uses. The power for one electric bus, such as on the mall here in Denver, uses about 400 houses worth of power, and one 18-wheeler needs a megawatt of power, the power needed for 700 homes. But we do have the wind and the solar resources. These maps from NREL show the wind in the Central Plains and on the coasts, the great solar resources from Colorado to California. And 90 years ago, Thomas Edison said, "I'd put my money on the sun and solar energy." What a source of power. I hope we don't have to wait until the oil and coal run out before we tackle that. Too expensive? Well, we've done it before. Great and expensive projects have been completed in our past and can be completed in the future. The Transcontinental Railroad water treatment and indoor plumbing, rural electrification, the Manhattan Project, the interstate highways, NASA and Apollo, fiber optics, internet, high-speed computing. None of these bankrupted our country or our world, and each one has made our world a better place. I'll finish with just a few quotes. From Albert Einstein, the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking which with we created them. Gaylord Nelson, the founder of Earth Day, not a relative, but we are both from Wisconsin. When is asked how much it will cost to protect the environment, one more question should be asked. What will it cost our civilization if
Hi, folks. I think if everyone's experiencing, I think Mike Nelson was having just a few technical difficulties. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'm Kristen Uhlenbrock from the Drexler Institute for Science and Policy. And we are going to just kind of move on and hopefully get Mike back with us. So as Mike alluded to, we have some great guests tonight, and I want to go ahead and bring our next speaker on, which is James Balog. James has more than 40 years as a photographer, and he's broken new artistic and conceptual ground on climate change and human modification of nature, the most crucial environmental issues of our era. His photographic and documentary work has been featured all over the world. James is the author of 9 books, including The Human Element, a time capsule from the Anthropocene. His 2018 film, also titled The Human Element, is a visually stunning look at how people interact with earth, air, fire, water, and energy, and how that impacts the climate. James founded the Extreme Ice Survey in 2007 to reveal the impact of climate change on glaciers and ice sheets. His work was the basis of an internationally acclaimed documentary, Chasing Ice, which has won numerous awards, including an Emmy. He is an avid mountaineer, graduate degrees in geography and geomorphology. And of course, he's at home either in a Himalayan mountain or here in our backyard in Colorado. We are thrilled that James is joining us this evening. And James, how are you doing tonight?
am I back? Was I gone?
Mike, you're back. How are you doing?
Okay. Good. Did I get through the whole thing?
You got pretty close to the end.
So something pop up and I thought, oh, that's not a good sign, but I've learned in the years of TV to just keep rolling.
You just keep rolling. And so I just got done introducing and bringing James on with his bio, but do you want to take back over and finish up before we kick off to James, or do you want to go ahead and have James?
I am, as I said at the end of my presentation, we can solve this problem. It just is going to take the invention. If we can fly a helicopter on another planet or come up with a COVID vaccine in a year, we can solve this, but it's going to take science and it's going to take leadership. I am so excited to virtually meet James and to share in this presentation because I have found that the documentary, especially Chasing Ice, is just an amazing program. But he's also written 9 books, including The Human Element, a time capsule from the Anthropocene. And his 2018 film, The Human Element, is a stunning look at how people interact with Earth, air, fire, water, and energy. James Balog, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mike. It's an honor to be here with you. You're a hard act to follow. That was a great presentation, one of the best I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of them. So congrats. Yeah, I've been an environmental photographer looking at the collision between people and nature for 40 years. And what I've come to realize is that we are part of nature. We're not separate from nature. And the sooner we kind of assimilate that thinking into our lives, the better off the civilization will be. In any case, what I'd like to show you tonight is a trailer from Chasing Ice, which I think is still on Netflix. And this film, which came out in 2012, is about a project that I've been doing, looking at receding glaciers as a consequence of climate change and ice sheets. The cameras are stationed in many places in the world. Antarctica, they were in Nepal for a while by Mount Everest, but also Greenland, Iceland, Montana, Alaska. And we've made a story, 1 million images of how the landscapes are changing. So that will be the first piece we'll show you. The second piece will be the trailer from The Human Element, looking at these various forms of material life on Earth, air, fire, and water, changing as a consequence of human impact. And then I'd like to show you a scene from the human element that takes us to a wildfire in California in 2016. It was a big fire called the Sobranis Fire, and it gave me enormous respect for what firefighters endure. You know, whether it's firefighters here in our backyard, and we had a lot of them this past summer, or it's firefighters all around the West in Canada and Russia and, you know, who knows where, because there's been a lot of fires everywhere. They do hard work, and they deserve all the support we can give them. So without further ado, here goes.
I'm on the phone with Jim on one of our regular check-ins. Like, Jim, nothing's happening.
It's starting, Adam. I think. Adam, it's starting.
Look at that. Look at the whole thing.
It all started in Iceland.
I think I'm so certain to get wet, I'll take my boots off.
I never imagined that you could see glaciers this big disappearing in such a short time. There's a powerful piece of history that's unfolding in these pictures, and I have to go back. The initial goal was to put out 25 cameras for 3 years, shoot every hour as long as it was daylight. That would show you how the landscape was changing.
Oh, this is the way to travel, my friend.
Putting really delicate electronics in the harshest conditions on the planet.
It's not the nicest environment for technology.
I do not want to go any lower than this. It's just bottomless. I'm going out here on this broken fin, and I assume it won't collapse.
Every once in a while, you get saying, what were you thinking? Maybe that office job wasn't so bad.
This thing is loose.
Rock.
It's not working. God, all of that obsession means nothing if it doesn't work.
Just be careful. Don't get too close to the edge, all right?
This is terrifying.
This knee has had 2 surgeries, and it really could use a 3rd.
He goes to that point where he can't anymore, and sometimes he's going further.
We have low oil pressure in engine number 2.
This is big stuff happening right now.
Okay, onward.
This is the memory of the landscape. That landscape is gone. It may never be seen again in the history of civilization, and it's stored right here.
The state of California is resorting to drastic measures tonight.
The most severe conditions.
When I became a photographer,
Here we go.
I wanted to celebrate the elegance and beauty of nature. But I soon realized there was a more complex story going on in the world.
Very powerful force of Mother Nature.
About the collision between people and nature. And I felt a great sense of urgency to bear witness to that.
We need to get out of here because the water's rising around us.
As you can see, the water is just tearing it to pieces. Front Range is still under an ozone action alert.
The majority of our kids are struggling with air.
In the United States, we have a fire problem.
The fire was huge and spread really fast.
These are wildfires we have no control over.
Little tornado right there.
We depend on the stability of the fundamental forces of the world. Earth,
When you work in the mine, coal becomes part of you.
air,
You're most definitely afraid of the air that you're breathing in.
water,
Water and the folks on Tangier, we're joined, we're connected.
fire,
Just respect it and maybe live a little longer.
and the 5th element, people. An imbalance in one element leads to an imbalance in another. People are the only elements that can choose to restore balance.
Good things come to people who hustle.
And that gives me hope.
We need the help, and we need it pretty quick.
We're one storm away from becoming a part of history.
Our deeds are leaving their imprint in the fabric of time. And what I want to do is bring this story to life.
So here's the deal. They come down these ridge lines into that dry lake, as they were saying. I'm Tony Howard, Battalion Chief for Mendocino Unit. I'm down here on this fire as a strike team leader. You see the line over here, guys? Looking to this far ridge through this smoke. Right over here, you can start seeing it coming down over the hill. It's the main fire. And it's chunking away at some pretty good rates here. Moving towards us like this. And the Carmel Valley's right here, and this Kachawa community right here. So we've got all these people out, and there's homes back in here. And so this is kind of our final stand.
If we have a big fire run, we're gonna lose thousands of houses probably. But we're trying to prevent that. You know, we'll do what we can. That's what we do.
Our objective is to burn the hillside here as quickly as possible. So it doesn't have any fuel out here to consume. So if we don't stop it here, we're talking tens of thousands more acres burned when this is all said and done.
Here we go.
We cut fire line with this dozer, so we're basically removing fuel away from the fire. We'll scrape off vegetation pretty much all the way down the ridge. Basically, we just strip it down to the bare earth.
That's what I'm talking about.
It's really catching because it's so dry. Boy, when the stuff goes off, it's just violent and explosive.
Eyes in the green, guys. Eyes in the green.
We all have to stay on our toes because if the wind really picks up suddenly, the embers, the sparks are going to fly behind us and this will start burning. So we don't want to be trapped in here.
Being a firefighter, you gotta have a healthy respect. You know, you see flames, you understand this can go that way, it can go that way, it can go up, it can go sideways. Just respect it, and maybe live a little longer.
We're getting some fire blowing across our line. As you can see, if you pan in on that flag right there, the winds are not in our favor, but we're hoping we can change that with a little bit of fire below it.
9110 Charlie, Division Charlie.
Copter 406, 9110 Charlie, we're a go on the firing out.
10 Charlie, Copter 406, Copter will be in route.
We're hoping we can build enough heat low that it can actually influence the fire and bring it down the canyon.
kind of sense what the animal wants to do. Work around it, work with it, make it work for us in order to work against that other fire over there. It's an incredible thing. Oh God, look at that.
This fire down here is taking all the oxygen from us down the hill. You know, it's creating its own storm essentially. So that flag up on the hill there that was just pointing the other way is sucking right back into our fire.
Parallel with the strip.
I was hoping you'd say that. Outstanding, thank you.
Wow, that was really something, James. Thank you on all three of those amazing videos. And I guess in the last part, we'd say definitely we're fighting fire with fire, but we are seeing a dramatic increase in the large and dangerous wildfires, not only in Colorado, but certainly where that was filmed in California. Our next speaker comes to us from California, and Jane Kim is a visual artist, science illustrator, and the founder of Inkwell, a Bay Area studio that explores the wonders of the natural world. Her art career started when she was a little girl, obsessively painting flowers and bears on the walls of her bedroom. She received more formal training at the Rhode Island School of Design and then at Cal State Monterey Bay, where she received a master's certificate in science illustration. She's created large-scale public art across the country, including the Wall of Birds at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and produced works for the National Aquarium, the DeYoung Museum, the Leigh Yawkey Woodson Art Museum, Weber State University, and more. She is the creator of the Migrating Mural Campaign, a series of public installations that highlight wildlife along migration corridors as it shares with people. She still enjoys painting flowers and bears, though nowadays she doesn't seem to get in trouble as much for painting on the walls. So Jane, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Wow, James, that was just incredible footage and absolutely chilling. I think I had goosebumps watching your video clips. And, you know, the macro story that you are telling is so important. And I think I like to focus on the micro and hopefully get people to fall back in love with their environments and the nature around them every day. So just give me a moment. I'm going to start sharing my screen as well. And get into presenter. Here we go. Okay, is that all looking good? All right, so Inkwell. We are a studio in the Bay Area of California, specifically in Half Moon Bay, and we create art that explores the wonders of the natural world. And as was mentioned, the Wall of Birds is a project at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology in their visitor center, where we showcase the diversity and evolution of birds through this 70 by 40 foot mural, where each family of birds as of 2015 was described, and they are all painted to scale. As you can see, I'm standing next to that 8-foot ostrich across a world map. And then along the stairwell, we have representation of the evolution of birds starting at 375 million years ago with a lobe-finned fish called the Tiktaalik. You can find this mural online. They've made an incredible interactive of it. If you just go ahead and Google Wall of Birds Interactive, what that is essentially, and I'm wondering if oh no, I'm not able to show it here, but it's like a Google Maps for this mural, and you can zoom in on each one of those birds. You can click on each bird, learn about the species, and specifically you can learn about the family it belongs to. If they have a call recording of it, you can hear its vocalization, and then you can also see where it's been observed through their citizen science application called eBird. So I'm just going to share just a few more of projects that Inkwell has done. We are a multidisciplinary studio in that we not only create this kind of mural and interpretation for visitor centers, but we also create scientific illustration for publications, fine art, as well as public art. So this is a sister project at a place in Los Angeles, California at Occidental College. This is the Moore Lab of Zoology on the top, and on the bottom is the Van Tuna Research Group. And this is their new facility on campus that we were able to create the backdrops for that tell the story of their research and connecting land and sea. This is the Jones Beach Energy and Nature Center in Long Island, New York. This actually just opened up. We were so grateful to have this project through the pandemic and be able to work on this remotely and have it installed later. It's a beautiful new facility that shares how energy and human, of course, relationships must find a sustainable way of moving forward, as well as describing some of the ecology of the island. And then the Migrating Mural is a series of art installations that are painted along migration corridors of wildlife that it shares with people. We have two series that are currently out in the world. One highlights the Sierra Nevada bighorn sheep on a stretch of 125 miles on 395 in the Eastern Sierra of California. And then our second subject is the Monarch Butterfly. And one of the reasons why we love the format of public art is that really it's the best way to engage on an everyday level. And we see these pieces as monuments to nature. Of course, we have monuments to a lot of other events in human history, whether it's to leaders or war or civil rights movements, but not so many monuments to the natural world. And so when we can elevate a species and its story to this scale and actually change the skyline of a city, it really helps us unite together around these precious animals that we share along with people. So this is a 360 mural of not only the monarch butterfly, but of the 5 families of butterflies that you can find in San Francisco. And here are a couple of other slides. This one is in Orlando, Florida. It's called Midnight Dream. And this is in Ogden, Utah, and it's called Monarch and Moda. And most recently, we just came back from Houston, Texas, where we turned this retaining wall in the heart of downtown. It's part of their new greenway system. So Houston is cut, the city of Houston is cut by this bayou system. And over the last 5 years or so, they've restored some of these pathways to be biking and walking paths for the city residents. And as such, Houston is not only the most diverse city for people, but it is one of the most diverse places to view birds, and it's got one of the largest migrations of bird migrations coming through the city of Houston. So we highlighted breeding plumage and non-breeding plumage of these 6 species. We've got the Blackburnian warbler, the chestnut-sided warbler, the magnolia warbler, the red-breasted grosbeak, the scarlet tanager, and the yellow warbler, as well as some key species for their spring and their winter populations. So we hope to transform, iconic or everyday places and make them special, and showcase our wondrous planet on each of these walls. And you can follow us at inkwell.com or at Inkwell on Twitter and Instagram.
Jane, that is absolutely stunningly beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing some of your work and your inspiration. I think especially in urban areas to take things that would just be a concrete wall and turn it into something that is a combination of beauty and science, and for younger people would perhaps inspire them that, wow, maybe I should learn how to do that. You don't know how you reach somebody. As I said at the beginning, we all learn differently. And so to connect with the natural world in such an organic way is just amazing. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Keep up the great work. And
Thank
thank you
you.
for joining us tonight. Our next featured guest is Kenya Mahogany Fashaw. And Kenya is the co-founder and chief creative officer of the 5280 Artist Co-op. Kenya is a spoken word artist, actress, and playwright, and she creates stories to normalize people of color and to change their narratives. Kenya was a recipient of the Denver Center of Performing Arts Playwrights Group. She has written and directed Colorism, Breaking the Chains of Complexion, produced by the 5280 Artist Co-op in 2015, which won a Henry Award for the Best New Play. Her work also has received accolades including One Night, Six Plays, Hip Hop Matrimony, a hip hop musical, and Cage's No More Bondage. Kenya Mahogany Fashaw, thank you so much for being a part of our event tonight.
Thank you so much, Mike. This is an honor to be here. Happy Earth Day to everyone. I am Kenya Fashaw. Like Mike said, I am a poet, a playwright, a actress, and a performer all around. And today I'm so excited with you because I get a chance to actually share a piece of my work of a script that I've been working on. It's in progress, but it was originally just a short script that I've written, teamed up with actual theater company in Boulder called Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, or best known as Betsy, if you know who they are. But Betsy did a call for local playwrights to team up with CU Boulder scientists and actually write scripts on their research about climate. And so I was honored to be teamed up with the beautiful Atre Bouchera. I hope I said that correctly, Atre. I'm sorry if I butchered that. But Atre is a wonderful, brilliant, beautiful climatologist scientist who studies basically the history of climate in India and the effects and the impacts that it has on the human body. So I've written a play regarding her research, or inspiring with her research, called Masum. And Masum basically means monsoon or the seasons in Arabic. And the reason why I chose that is because Atre is from India. She focuses all of her research in India. So it was just so much fitting to kind of connect those two. So what I'm going to show you today is just a snippet of the play. It actually is going to be Act 2. And just to set up the scene in Act 2, in Act 1, Sangeeta, who is a 16-year-old aspiring climatologist, is actually shadowing her mother, who is a climatologist, on a boat ride as they collect sediment cores out of the lake. Sediment cores help you to kind of tell the history of climate change. So on this boat, Sangeeta, who is 16, is so not focused, ends up slipping in the boat and bumping her head. She is then transcend into this time machine back into 1940, where she meets her great-grandparents and actually helps them through one of the worst droughts in India. So yeah, that is Act 2, Masum. I want to give a shout out to the actors that did this reading with us. It was a stage reading that we did via Zoom. So Jihad Milham, Maya J. Ham, I believe it is, and I think it's DePauli Lindblom on this one, DePauli Lindblom. So thank you so much for those actors for lending their talents to this beautiful script. I hope you guys enjoy. It's awesome.
And a dry monsoon of dust particles sweeps the land. Sangeeta's mother, Varshini, is nowhere in sight. Laying at the edge of the... Lights up. And Sangeeta, laying at the edge of the lake. The heat is blazing and a dry monsoon of dust particles sweeps the land. Sangeeta's mother Varshini is nowhere in sight. Sangeeta awakens, touching her head in pain.
Oh, what happened? Mama? Mama, where are you? Mama?
She sees her cell phone and bag laying next to her and quickly picks it up. She tries turning on her phone, but it's dead. Suddenly, Sangeeta, struggling to see through the dust, notices a young man in his late 20s walking with a pregnant woman around his shoulder. The young woman looks sick and weak.
Hey, you! Are you all right? Have you been hurt? Do you need any help?
What? I don't know what's going on. I need to find my mother. Her name is Varshini. We were on our boat over there. Where did our boat go? Mama!
Hey, calm down. If you need help, you need to come now. My wife is pregnant and sick. I need to find food and shelter for her, and I don't have time to waste.
Wait, I think I have food and water in my bag.
What?
Food in my bag. Here, give her this.
Sangeeta hands Balveer water from her water bottle and fruit. Balveer quickly takes it. He lays his wife on the ground and tries to get her to drink the water.
Arna, Janu, please drink this. Please. You need water. I promise I will find us the care we need. I will work. We will have more. I promise. Just drink the water.
Arna barely lifts her head and drinks. Sangeeta looks around and notices how different the climate was compared to when she was on the boat with her mother.
Excuse me, where are we? I need to find my mother and I don't know where I am. Everything looks so different here.
Are you some sort of angel?
What? No.
Only an angel can appear with food and water out of nowhere like that. I'm a farmer, and I have nothing left. It hasn't rained for the last 5 years, so how could a young girl like yourself get food like this so easily, huh?
Leave her alone, Balveer. It doesn't matter where she got it from. She shared what she had with us from the goodness of her heart. That's all that matters, right? She very well may be an angel.
I know, my love, but we've been dealing with this for so long, and it's hard to believe anyone would have any fresh food left.
I was just trying to help. I don't know what's going on. I just need to find my mother. Oh, my head hurts so bad.
Come with me. I see a small hut we can rest in. This heat is unbearable. We need shade.
Balveer picks his wife up and puts her arm around his shoulder. Sangeeta follows behind Balveer to the hut. The hut is made of mud, wood, palm leaves, and branches. Balveer places Aruna inside the hut and comforts her while Sangeeta tries to turn on her phone.
Are you okay?
I don't think so.
Balveer takes a headscarf he's wearing and gives it to Sangeeta.
Here, wrap this around your head. It will help with any pain. My wife was right. It's really nice of you to give your food and water. No one's been nice to us in a while, so it was unfamiliar. I want to truly say thank you. I'm Balveer. And you are?
Sangeeta.
Sangeeta. Beautiful name.
Where were you going? It's so hard to see anything out here with all this dust flying around.
My wife and I lost everything here. So we have to leave this land. There is no rain, which means very little food and water. She's carrying our child. We can't survive like this. Food is too expensive. I have little money without my crop. I just need to find new work.
Suddenly, Sangeeta's phone begins to play Indian pop music.
What is that sound? Is that music?
Yeah, what is that? How did it make music?
My cell phone! I think I got connected to Wi-Fi.
What is a cell phone? What is connected to a Wi-Fi?
You don't know what a cell phone is? Bro, what year is this?
Bro. And it's 1940. Did something happen to you when you hit your head?
Oh my gosh. 1940?
The music is still playing, and Arna lifts herself up and begins to dance.
I just love this music. Remember when we used to dance, Balveer? I miss dancing.
Arna, Janu, what are you doing? This is unlike you. You need to lay down and rest. You're too weak.
Oh, Balveer, the water our angel Sangeeta gave us is giving me life. Dance with me. Let's enjoy this moment.
Arna begins to dance for Balveer. Sangeeta can't help but join. Balveer begins to laugh like a melodic thunder and slaps his knee.
Look at you two. You both look silly.
Your laugh sounds so familiar. Like the deep warmth of melodic thunder.
Melodic thunder. I like it.
I was going to say the same thing about your face, Sangeeta. You look so familiar.
Well, I guess I just have one of those faces.
They all laugh and dance to the music on Sangeeta's phone.
Wait, my phone. If I can get a signal, I think I might be able to help you and your wife.
What are you talking about?
I can help you navigate the droughts. I'm studying to get into the science program called Girls Who Love STEM. I want to be a paleoclimatologist one day, just like my mother. She's been teaching me all about climates through history and the impacts of climate events, like this dry monsoon.
Okay. But how does that help us?
Balveer, be patient and let our angel explain.
Technology. It's all on my phone. My mother has done the research that shows the impact and methods of survival that will help you and Arna. I guess I can give you my phone so that you can follow what opportunities there are and where.
Balveer takes Sangeeta's phone out of her hands and begins to flip it back and forth, pushing its button on the screen.
I've never seen or heard of any magic like this before.
It's not magic, it's technology. I am sure this data will help you start over and regrow your crops. Your wife and your baby have to survive. They just have to.
Balveer smiles and hugs Sangeeta.
Oh, how sweet. This is wonderful news. Angel, thank you. All that dancing tired me out. I think I'm going to lay down for a while.
Yes, Janu, please get some rest. I will keep watch. We will wait until sundown and begin our journey then. You too, Sangeeta. Get some sleep.
Sangeeta nods her head, smiles, and lays down near Arna.
Thank you, Angel.
Blackout. Sangeeta awakens on the sand to her mother's voice calling her name.
Sangeeta! Sangeeta, please! Wake up, Sangeeta!
Mama? Oh, my head.
Oh, thank goodness, Sangeeta. My baby's alive. Are you okay? Let me see your head.
I'm okay, Mama. What happened?
You slipped and hit your head. You were going after that stupid phone after it fell in the lake. I pulled you off the boat to get help. Thank goodness you're okay. You scared me half to death.
It was me, Mama. I'm the angel.
What are you talking about, Sangeeta?
I saved Papa Sharma. I mean, Balveer and Arna.
How did you know that? I never told you Papa Sharma and Nana's first names.
I helped them, Mama. The research data you sent me on my phone about rain reductions from 1935 to 1947, I gave it to them so that they could better survive the drought. Just like Papa Sharma said, I'm the angel. The story was true, Mama.
No, you're delirious. You've heard that story so many times that your mind is making you see illusions. Let's go. I need to get you checked out.
But Mama.
Let's go, Sangeeta.
Rashini rushes Sangeeta off stage. She stops and looks back and hears the echoes of her Papa Sharma's laugh.
Thank you, granddaughter. You saved our family. Thank you for giving us our angel.
She looks around and quickly exits. Blackout, end of play.
Wonderful, Kenya. Wonderful. Oh my goodness, that was really compelling. Thank you so much for sharing, and send our regards to our actors that did such a magnificent job. We know that our changing climate will impact the poorest among us the most, even though they have the least individually to do with the adding of carbon dioxide to our atmosphere. So as the leading nation in the world, it really behooves us to use our power and our technology and our leadership to lead the way in solving this crisis. And I think we can indeed do it. That was a very poignant play, and we want to kind of bring it around a little bit with a little bit of humor. Climate change comedy. When I first heard this from our next speaker, I was like, well, that ought to be interesting. I hope I hear the one joke that Beth shared with us a couple of weeks ago. So Beth Osnes is a theater and performance studies artist and scholar who is active in applied performance and creative climate communication. Her interest resides in the use of performance as a tool for supporting youth in empowering their civic voices. She engages in performance to co-author and actualize an equitable, survivable, and thrivable future for all life and the ecosystems upon which all life relies. Her work often takes place in a non-traditional performance space by participants who may not identify as performers. As an associate professor of theater and environmental studies at the University of Colorado, she is co-founder of Inside the Greenhouse, an initiative for creative communication on climate, toured an original musical called Shine as part of the Rockefeller Foundation 100 Resilient Cities Initiative, as well as many other achievements. Ladies and gentlemen, Beth Osnes.
Thank you. Thank you. And this is a piece I'm going to be doing that is called The 11th Commandment. In response to breaking news that an 11th commandment has recently been adopted by the Pan-Abrahamic community, Christians, Jews, Muslims have united to adopt this new addition to the original 10 commandments. What is it, and how is it for this new commandment to be so newly minted a sin? Here with us live is global warming. So, global warming, glad you could be with us today. It's going to be a sensational show.
Thank you for having me.
And can you give us the exact wording of your commandment?
Sure. Thou shalt not contribute to global warming.
This stunning announcement was forecasted by the Pope's 2015 release of the theological text, Our Common Home, that thoroughly examines the impacts of climate change on the poorest who did the least to cause it. It links rampant, unchecked consumerism and capitalism to the degradation of the Earth's many systems upon which our animal brethren rely for life. Damn it, who wrote this? The earnest intern? Get that kid delivering my coffee, not writing my copy. This is deadly. Thou shalt not kill my ratings. Okay, let's get to the juicy parts. Critics say that you lack the qualities a sin needs to change human behavior. They say that the sin of global warming doesn't have immediate consequences. What do you have to say to these charges? I would say that they're absolutely right. I mean, most sins do have immediate consequences. You kill somebody and they call you a murderer and you go to jail. You dishonor your mother and your father, and your mom gives your comic book collection to the thrift store, and you don't get to live in the basement anymore. You bear false witness, and you will be called a liar and elected to public office. I don't have any of these immediate consequences. I can't keep up with these more well-established sins. Well, that brings up another point. Where do you draw the line, global warming? How do I know when I've committed you? I mean, it seems like just living contributes to global warming. I mean, we all exhale carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas. So what, is breathing a sin? Or could I accuse my grandmother when she's driving her car to church of the sin of global warming? No, you're absolutely right. That's why I'm having a hard time getting any traction. I'm such a slippery slope. It's only the most pathetic Prius driving junior varsity sinners who even think of me. The hardcore mega truck spewers of emissions, they don't even give me a second look. I was talking to a casting director about this similar thing, and I asked her, why wasn't I being cast as any leading roles in any movies? And she said, I have a dilemma of representation. She said, sure, some people think they've made movies about me, disaster films with seawater rise and huge storms that won't let up. But it's the individual weather events that get the most pow. The overall trends, which is more accurately what I am. It's just not as sexy at the box office. To be the major twist in a great film, you need to immediately derail somebody's life. I mean, sure, in the long term, in like 40 years, I'm going to be the most badass, earth-shattering sin this world has ever seen. But until then, I'm just here like misunderstood and neglected. Have you ever thought of asking any of the other commandments for some help getting started? Well, my neighbor's wife was over the other night and she was trying to cheer me up. She said that undressing by the window helped her get her sin appeal, but I don't think that really applies to me. And then before leaving, she said, buck up, you're one of us big commandments now. You're gonna soar. And I said to her, yeah, for some sins, the sky is the limit. But for me, I'm also saddled with oceans and polar ice caps and tropical forests. Well, global warming, it seems like you're having a tough start, but I am sure that we're going to be hearing a lot more from you as the immediate consequences ramp up from continued emissions, unsustainable agricultural practices, and rampant consumerism. I think you have a lot of widespread regret to look forward to. Well, that's very kind of you to say. But the truth is, I was hoping to be more of a deterrent than a bummer. Well, who knows? After this last election, anything is possible. Give it up for our latest commandment, everybody. Global warming. Thank you. Thank you.
That is wonderful stuff. Would you regale us with a couple of climate jokes too?
Oh, okay. Well, there was the one that, we partner with Project Drawdown because they made a list of some of the top climate solutions. And one of them, surprisingly enough, is health and education, which really alludes largely to family planning. So it really means it leads to ways that you can make policy, but it also has some rhymes to it, like, give the pill a free refill, or, put your buck on the interrupted, things like that are things that you could use if you were going to use these. Another one that is surprising is that refrigeration is one of the top, refrigerant management is also another top climate solution put forth by Project Drawdown. And you could say that there would be in a setting, there could be a 1940s bar where one refrigerator walks into a bar and sees another really good looking refrigerator and says to it, "Are you free on Friday night?" I rest my case. And my last thing would just be to say that I acknowledge that climate change and reversing global warming is a huge mountain that's going to take a steep incline of new behavior change in order to overcome. And I just want to say that there's really only one way to kind of get over something like that, and that is climate.
Very good. Very good. Thank you so much, Beth Osnes. And I would point out to you and also to James on this, and I guess we could throw in Kenya on this from the performance end, that pretty much every great Hollywood disaster movie begins with the scientist being ignored.
That's great.
And so, but I did love, I was talking to thy neighbor's wife the other night. That was pretty good. Just got to slide that in there. It was great. And I will say this, that earlier today, I was on a Zoom meeting with the co-author of our little book here,
Kitty,
world's littlest book on climate, Peter Tons, who is a wonderful researcher up at NOAA. He knows probably more about atmospheric carbon dioxide than anybody. And I said to Peter that the scientists didn't realize back 30 or 40 years ago that they needed to roll out a marketing plan in order to present the science of climate change and global warming. It just seemed like any other scientific endeavor. And as we know that back in the late 80s, when James Hansen testified before Congress, at that point in time, H.W. Bush said, we'll combat the greenhouse effect with the White House effect. So this really has only become much more contentious, if you will, and a political football in the last 25 or 30 years. And unfortunately, we've wasted a lot of time in finding the solutions, and that hill only gets steeper. So I want to thank all of our guests tonight for giving us just such a wide breadth of presentation capabilities, from film to theater to comedy to art. And you never know how you're going to reach the people of this nation and around the world. And I think very much so we may reach some tonight this way. And it's going to take a cooperative effort, but it's also going to take a government and an international effort. Personal virtue is wonderful, but our system is so built and dependent upon fossil fuel right now. We have to create a system that we can all thrive in different ways without adding more carbon to the atmosphere. So Kristen, if you would like to facilitate just a little bit here and guide us on to the end with any questions, that would be wonderful. I have a little bit of a heart out myself because I'm going to be on TV here in about 15 minutes on our local 3 station for the 8 o'clock newscast. So Kristen, if you would jump in here, I'd sure appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was wonderful. Thank you to all of our speakers. And our audience may have noticed Jane had to run multiple commitments here on Earth Day. So, part of bringing this together was to talk about how art is a form of communication. You all bring various different perspectives and different modalities to talking about climate change. I mean, let's just kickstart it all with all of you. How does your art, where are there examples where you have found you've been able to reach someone in a different way than maybe some of our more traditional forms of communication that, rely on news media articles or conversations with friends? How does your art, through whatever lens you bring, how do you think you've related to people? Let me start with Beth, and then I would love for James, of course, in Kenya, and Mike to chime on with that.
I think the thing that I'm most interested in is using climate comedy with our students. And what I find is that facilitating experiences where they become the creators of climate comedy is really the most impactful. I remember a time at the University of Colorado before the pandemic when we had our Earth Day show, and it was live at the Old Main Theater. And it was a bunch of students who were environmental studies seniors who were supported in creating really funny climate, at least funny friends. And their whole friends group were in the audience, and there were a bunch of young people together laughing and having a super good time taking the issue of climate change. Even though climate comedy doesn't necessarily do the heavy lifting, I think what it does is it can give positive associations with this issue that is so surrounded by gloom and doom. And there's so much disengagement with the issue because of people's overwhelming negative feelings of guilt, of despair, of fear. And if we can start to get engagement through these kind of taking on solutions and putting forth these kind of wild solutions feels good. So that's really the thing that I've enjoyed most, is getting the young people creating climate comedy.
I guess I'm supposed to take it up from there, Kristen. Thank
Sure.
you. I heard an anthropologist say one time that one of the defining behaviors of humanity is that we look for patterns, and then we like to tell ourselves stories about those patterns. Well, the patterns are science. Science, above all, is a process of looking for, measuring, seeking patterns to try and make sense of the world. And then telling stories is what art does. And so if you take those two things and you put them together, the art and the science together, you are creating a more full sort of a perception of the world for people. And, you know, when I started going deep into this field, there was a huge amount of science that was around, but the scientists were frustrated because people were saying, we're not getting through on the basis of numbers and computer studies and graphs, you know, and that still is the case. As bomb-proof as that science is, people still glaze over with that stuff. So you have to find these different methods of communicating the information. And that's what we're all doing here. And in our own small worlds, one by one, we try and tell a different story to the human race about itself and about what we need to do. So, you know, we all wish we could wave some gigantic magic wand and change the world and boom, it's all done, it's all fixed, but it doesn't work that way. Nobody has the magic wand, and it's just all of us doing our little pieces one after the other.
Well, yeah. As an educator at the Museum of Nature and Science, I believe in the power of storytelling. Just to kind of piggyback off of James and Beth, being able to tell a story and break it down to most that wouldn't understand it if they were to go to a lecture or something like that is very much important. I think with doing the research myself, I've learned so much. You know, as a playwright, just researching the work of the scientists, and I believe that it changed me in a way because I didn't know that so many things occurred, and as the playwright, I felt like I was the most impacted because I wasn't ready for the information that I had to kind of break it down for people to understand. It was a lot of information. So the art of storytelling is what I lean on. And if you're able to tell a story, especially a scientific story, because that's what we do every time at the museum, we're telling stories and we're making it more engaging for people to enjoy science, I think that's a winner in my eye.
Mike?
You know, I've spoken to schools for 40 years, and I think I mentioned it. We did the back of the envelope calculation, and about 1 million children that I've addressed in that time. And I don't expect that they'll all become television meteorologists, but what I hope is that when I do things like the hail juggling and the tornado dance, which has become one of my trademarks, that I get the kids excited about weather because they're out in it all the time. And I know that's what attracted me to the science when I was a little boy with thunderstorms. I loved watching them, and I learned more and more about it. The other thing that attracted me to the science was the Apollo program, because that was amazing as a youngster to watch and see what we did there. And we had major problems to fix, and we did them, and we got there. And so my hope in talking to those kids is that they will not necessarily all become atmospheric scientists, but maybe understand how climate change basically works, and urge their parents and their grandparents and their grumpy uncle to maybe understand this as well. And they will. I loved in the play when they talk about the cell phone. And we think about, you know, this technology didn't exist 25 years ago, and we take it for granted that we're carrying a supercomputer around in our pocket. Who knows what amazing inventions we'll come up with in the next 20 or 30 years that will help solve the problems that we face today. And it's going to take inspiration through the arts and communication to get our young people on board to at least have scientific literacy.
How do we talk about empathy and urgency and the desire to act around climate change without creating fear and defeatism, and that sense that I as an individual, can't make a change? How that's a little, it kind of relates that we had a question here in the chat about using the term climate crisis. So how do you all think about that, right? Because I can imagine, climate change is very emotional through various different lenses and things like that. And there's a sense of urgency, but at the same time, we don't want to create fear, in my opinion. So, I mean, Kenya, what are your thoughts on that? And I want to hear from everyone too, but Kenya, do you maybe have some thoughts there?
Yeah, like, I think with the play, going back to the play, like, and researching so much about what droughts do to humans, in that particular space, there was a whole lot of suicide, there was a whole lot of disease and malaria, and it was so sad, it was so depressing. I tried to find the silver lining in all of that to make a beautiful story instead of a sad one, because that's all I kept hearing was, the downfall of what climate can do. And I was determined with writing this play to make it something beautiful, make it poetic even, to kind of bridge the gaps of technology helping the family get through this drought instead of anybody dying of any diseases or anything like that, because it's a very much sense of urgency what's happening in India. And I think, I mean, everywhere else, but definitely India, I think it's very, very semi-dry, arid places. And it's just, it's very hard to actually live and survive in that type of climate. So I think there is definitely a sense of urgency there. So I hope I answered your question in a way.
I think that it's really vital that we leave a positive message, and I loved the work that you guys have done on your various areas of expertise, because we can't leave this that it's too big a problem to solve. And one of the really great front range climate scientists is Dr. Scott Denning, who's up at Colorado State, and he uses a very simple thing. He says climate change and the threat from it is simple, serious, and solvable. Simple, that you add heat, it gets warmer. Serious, for the reasons that we talked about, the melting ice, the sea level rise, the fires, the droughts. But solvable because we have the technology now to electrify much of our power system in the United States and lead the world. When we look at how the cost of solar and wind is just plummeting, realize that we don't necessarily have to figure out nuclear fusion. We've got a really good fusion reactor that's going to burn for a couple billion more years, and it's just 93 million miles away. We can capture that energy right now and put it to use.
I think the other thing is that we find that when you really look, through our partnership with Project Drawdown, is that really a lot of the top solutions are within our hands. Like, they're within our power. Reducing food waste, health and education for young women, plant-based diet. These things are actually above solar and wind power when it comes to reversing global warming. So when we looked at these, and once you get that knowledge to young people especially, one of the things that we're doing at Inside the Greenhouse is we're taking Project Drawdown's list of these top climate solutions and we're adapting it to a 5th grade level so that these young people can use these solutions and have access to these top climate solutions to be using. And then we create these opportunities for them to be enacting these. And we use the word enact in double meaning. So enact in terms of play and making up skits about them and how you would act that out in a local context, but then also enact in where they're actually getting that to a place where it can have influence on policy, to enact policy, to enact law. So there's that, like theater and performance can become this rehearsal place for reality, a place to try things out before you've invested resources, a place to benefit from the input from the people who are watching, the chance to gain the courage and the resolve to follow through.
I would like to thank all of our guests tonight, Beth and James, Kenya, and also Jane, for sharing your skills and your passion. And I would like to thank everybody that has tuned in. I especially thank the folks at the University of Colorado and at the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. I have to go. I'll be performing on TV in about 2 minutes. So if you want to continue to carry on everything, Kristen, thank you all very much. Next year, perhaps we'll be all back together at the IMAX Theater for our 4th annual Earth Day event. But this has been absolutely wonderful. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Mike. We know you got to pop on air, but so go ahead if you want to leave. I just want to give James, maybe, if you want to take the final word, or anyone else too, about this connection on emotion and empathy, and how do you draw that out when you tell stories in the work that you do?
I find it a really, really difficult problem. I used to really focus intensely on the point of giving hope and optimism, right? Well, that's all good, and I believe in that. And fundamentally, I believe in kind of putting your head down in the storm and pushing forward, and not letting the storm get you dismayed and despairing. But I think we have to be realistic that we are in a dire, dire climate emergency now. And a friend of mine in San Francisco just sent me a note the other day, and he said, I think you ought to change your messaging. This is to the point that somebody made on the chat scroll here. And our friend on the chat scroll said, stop talking about climate change, talk about climate crisis. Well, my friend in San Francisco pointed out to me that Scientific American just came out with a big article in which they said, it's not even climate crisis, we should call it a climate emergency. And I saw that and I thought, boy, that's a scary word to be slapping up in the world. And I'm not sure that even I would use that kind of a term, but I actually think that a certain amount of fear and anger at this time would be a good thing, because we as an adrenalized species, Homo sapiens does very, very well when Homo sapiens is scared. And we've tried all kinds of moral and emotional and philosophical persuasion to get this society off its butt and get moving in the right direction. And the progress has been painfully slow. And we have a new administration now, and John Kerry's doing great things, and Gina McCarthy's doing great things. But, that could all change 3.5 years from now. And I think we need to be fired up, and we need to be feeling kind of stressed so that we do something. We will do something to the best of our abilities when an asteroid is about to hit the Earth. We'll send out every nuclear missile there is out into the Milky Way to try and blow that thing up. And basically, we've got our own self-produced asteroid that's in the process of swirling around us in this atmosphere right now. And I think we ought to be afraid of it. And I think we should be angry about it. And I think that might help us get moving a little bit faster. At the same time, I don't want to scare people, and I want to be optimistic. I'm always going back and forth on this seesaw between those polarities. Beth is my speaking coach. I'm not speaking well tonight, Beth. My voice is kind of dry and choked up. But
I was thinking you were doing great.
Beth gets me ready for big stage performances. So anyway, so that's my wrap, Kristen, about this balancing act that we're in right now.
It's also interesting when you work, because I teach at the University of Colorado, when you work with young people, like we act like this is like news, like, oh, we got to talk about climate. And they grew up with that being a reality. So it's an interesting thing when you're talking to people for whom it's always been a thing. It's always been within their consciousness. It's just interesting, given a different perspective myself.
Yeah.
Dealing with that.
Kenya, you work with youth too. What's your perspective on that?
I think the youth is way smarter than we give them credit for, and I know that they're definitely aware so much more. And working with kids, they especially at the Science Museum, I think they're so inquisitive. We call these kids actually kids. Why actually they'll kind of correct you, but these kids are like I said, they're so much more smarter, and I don't know. I feel like the information that we feed them and that we give them, like you said, there's, like Mike said, technology is at the tip of your hand. So anything that you give them or feed them, I'm sure they're Googling it or looking it up and getting, deeper and deeper into a rabbit hole of climate. you know, we as educators can only do so much, but I know that kids are smart and they're going to find out regardless the ups and downs of climate change. So.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. It has been, I'll just say, you know, we've all had our challenges with the public health crisis and the pandemic that we've been living through for the past year. And it's been hard, I think, for those of us who are living in multiple spaces in the science policy world that I live into of, you know, public health crisis and COVID-19 and climate and all this stuff that just kind of feels overwhelming at times for many of us. And I really loved that all three of you brought, I think, a really fresh, enlightening perspective. I'm really passionate about art as a way to connect and reach with people in all different sorts of emotions. And it can reach people in a way that it just really is moving. So I'm really grateful for you all to join us here today on Earth Day, the 51st Earth Day here in the US, and share a little bit of your expertise and your work and your brilliance and your thoughts. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Kenya.
Thank you.
Jim.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good, an honor to be on with both of you.
This was great. Yeah, our audience has been really thankful. I want to share just a quick plug for Beth mentioned this. We have a flyer. Let me just share this before we go. She was talking about stand-up comedy, and we heard a little bit of it tonight. It was quite enjoyable. I think Nicole has dropped this in the chat for all of you, but we encourage you to go ahead and check out InsideTheGreenhouse.org for their new comedy show. And we have a ton of other links and resources in the chat. We'll send them to you in email too. Go check out all of the films. Keep an eye out for Kenya's plays as they come around the theaters and her work, everything. And of course, Beth's work on thing. And we have Jane's work that we'll send you as well too. I've been a big fan of hers for many, many years, and so excited she was able to join us. As always, stay well, be kind, find some moment of joy. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and staying up so late. I hope you have a great rest of your Earth Day. Have a good one.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.